Hi everybody, Joe Chaffee here on a Sunday night, Sunday, May 7th. And we've got a surface map here with the radar echoes actually showing snow throughout much of north central New York, down all the way into parts of Sullivan County, which is pretty far south. And much of this is melting before it gets to the ground. The air is so cold aloft that the radar echoes are reflecting it in the form of snow. But when I looked at most of these observations at these stations, it's generally rain. You know, there might be some elevated areas that are getting some snow out of this. I wouldn't at all be surprised. And this is another day with this spinning upper air low that's in the northeast that's producing some showers this evening. Tonight, the showers are actually scattered through parts of Connecticut and the Hudson Valley. Yesterday, they were in and around New York City and Long Island and parts of northeastern New Jersey and the lower Hudson Valley. There isn't too much going on as you go to the south, but you can see how cool these temperatures are for this time of year. This evening, 50. Now, of course, there's for the coast, when there's a south wind, it could easily be 50 as well, and we've seen that a number of times over the last couple of weeks. So it's the actual temperature is not that much different, not that much cooler than what we've experienced, but it's the fact that the air mass, you can feel the difference when you're outside. This has a very autumn feel to it, and certainly for inland areas that are not subject to the wind off the ocean or the sea breeze, it is definitely cool. It's in the mid 40s this evening across much of the Hudson Valley and interior Connecticut, northern New Jersey, even down through interior areas of central New Jersey and much of eastern Pennsylvania in the upper 40s to around 50, and then you get into the 30s as you move on to the north. So very unusual to see it this late in the winter spring seasonal transition. If we saw this at maybe a couple of weeks ago, it wouldn't be that unusual, but now it is getting a bit on the strange side, and this is all because of that blocking pattern that we've been under. Now here's the latest radar. And I'll just give you a fresh view. Let me just freshen it up a little bit. And there are the echoes spinning away. This is probably snow in elevated areas to the north. It's not really any precipitation is not really overly heavy. You can see scattered showers to the south on the radar across parts of southern New Jersey and in and around the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, down through Delaware and eastern Virginia. So this is the broad circulation that this upper air low is affecting the weather over a large number of states in the Northeast down to the mid-Atlantic states. Out in the west, we've got some rain showers and a few thunderstorms developing over parts of the Rockies. You can see it here, a lot of scattered activity, even some rain down in Southern California, all the way down near San Diego, showing up on the radar. Not much going on in the Pacific Northwest, and we've got precipitation throughout much of the Rockies showing up from Colorado on up in through Wyoming. And when we look at the satellite loop here in the east, here's the upper air storm starting to inch away a little bit more toward the north, the circulation extending all the way down into the southeast. Now, of course, that's brought in dry, cool air down into the southeastern part of the United States. The sky's beautifully clear from the Carolinas down through Florida and across the Gulf states. There's no severe weather threat going on there, certainly, and nice weather across much of the Great Lakes and on up into the upper Midwest. And then you start to get into the moisture and the clouds and the showers that are going on through the Rockies. We'll cover the West separately on the satellite in just a second. And I just want to show you where we're going with all this. Gradually, as we move through the next couple of days, the atmosphere is going to stabilize, even though it remains cold. And I'm thinking we're going to have clouds and still the chance that there could be a shower or two running around on Monday. We still have this broad upper air low. This is the surface map, but gradually that's going to start to pull out to some degree. At least it pulls out to the east, but we've got this blocking pattern, so that complicates things. It does put us in a let's call it a sweet spot for the middle part of the week. It seems like weather systems that'll be coming out from the west will be driven southeastward. Now, toward the weekend, now here's what's happening out in the Atlantic. You can see there's a low that's developing out in the ocean that's going to kind of park itself south of Nova Scotia, right in here. So this sets up for the next weather system that'll be coming eastward. And here we are on Friday with low pressure developing in northeastern Texas. It'll probably be a severe weather threat across the south late this week. And then that low on this latest GFS run runs into eastern Tennessee and then moves its way up the coast for next weekend, bringing another soaking rain. Now, one of the things that I've noticed on the sequence of model runs over the last couple of days, in that event that we had last Friday, right around the same time frame, the models kind of lost it, that system, made it much weaker, either pushed it further south or just didn't really do anything with it, only to come back to the original solution, which was to move it up along the slopes of the Appalachians on up into upstate New York, which is what happened. And it seems like, at least if this GFS run late this afternoon is an indicator, that we may be seeing the same thing here. The models had a threat for a mid-May nor'easter for next weekend. Then it backed off, and now it seems to want to put it back on the table again. So I think what we're going to do is just kind of wait for the next 4 or 5 model runs to see if it's going back to the original idea. And once that pulls out, and again, this is going to take time because the block is going to try to hang on probably longer than what models are indicating. It's still having some impact on our weather through the middle part of next week. At least this model run seems to want to show that blocking hanging on before we get to, say, day 11 or 12, day 13, which is the following weekend. Again, now we're getting into, let's call it squirrel land with regards to whether there's any reality or not. At this point, it looks like then the block has broken down and the pattern has evolved into something where weather systems are starting to move across from west to east. But I want to show you the upper air with this. And we're going to, first I'm going to start tight. And we'll go back to the very beginning. Now you watch the progression here since Thursday of what this upper low has done. You can see it here as it lifts up to the northeast and just kind of consolidates itself in western Pennsylvania. And then just sort of sits here in the north, in southeastern Canada. It's a very large upper air system, and there's disturbances, spokes that are rotating around it. Here's one that's coming through this evening. There'll probably be another one trying to come through tomorrow. Now the upper low is in upstate New York tomorrow morning, but you can see how long it's taking for this to move. I mean, here we are from Thursday when we were back here. This is Thursday, and here's Friday evening, and now we're into Tuesday of this week, and this thing is still sitting up in New England. And this is pulling down very chilly air into the northeast and mid-Atlantic states, and actually even into the southeastern part of the U.S., getting into some of the colder air. And the upper low actually never really goes away. It kind of just dives southeastward of Cape Cod, off Cape Cod, and now you start to see what happens with the energy coming back with the next thing. Part of this stretches out. Okay, so here's this upper low. Part of it stretches out, and a new upper low forms in the western lakes, and then you've got this southern stream energy that's coming down and around. And let's see what happens when we go through next weekend. Now, here's what's important. This is the model phases those two systems together on this run, and suddenly you have another closed upper low sitting in western Pennsylvania. So this is going to mean that there'll probably be some kind of low near or just inland of the coast moving northward, bringing up a soaking rain for next weekend, if this is correct. And with the blocking scenario, that thing just sits there for a couple of days until it lifts up. And it really doesn't pull us out into a ridge position here until, the late in the following weekend, briefly, before another trough comes through. So let's look wide to see what it's doing, because I think that's going to really, we have to see what's happening up in the north in Greenland to really get an idea here of what's happening. And there's your block, okay, as we go into next week. Very well-defined upper high sitting in southern Greenland. That's got this all pinned down. You can see how nothing in the atmosphere is really able to do anything in terms of progression. And then you have this low out in the Azores that we've been talking about, that because of that blocking high has just been sitting there. So finally it opens up somewhat. But you'll see there's another system that forms south of Iceland, and now the blocking high has moved into Labrador. So it's still there toward the end of next week, and there is actually still some semblance of higher than normal pressures in northeastern Canada. You're getting this thing to spin around here from Iceland on southward, so that reinforces the block to some degree, and that's one of the reasons why this particular model run is developing this big upper low in the eastern part of the U.S. You see how this thing just doesn't move? So there is some semblance, even though the big upper high is gone, there's still some semblance of blocking that is there. And we're going to have to pay attention to that to see if that's something real or not. And then over the longer haul, you still have below normal pressures throughout southeastern Canada, and this is going to still favor cooler than normal temperatures, except for the odd day here and there. It's going to continue to favor cooler than normal temperatures if this is right through the 16-day period. Meanwhile, out in the west, while we're at it, we've got this trough that's dropping down along the west coast now, and you can see it here. This is why there's rain in southernmost California tonight. They've got this gigantic upper low sitting right over San Diego and dropping southward over Baja California and then into the southwest. And here comes the next one. So you can't really, it has a tough time going east because of the ridge that's out in the Rockies, so it tends to want to drop southward, and that's what it's doing. So that's probably going to mean for some more activity coming into the immediate west, and actually has a pretty good area of energy that drops down along the west coast for the week. Now we're into the week of the 14th, so this is May 17th here. I'll tell you, this is a very, very unusual and extremely interesting pattern to have for this time in May. You know, if we saw this in March or early April, it is, it does tend to get blocky in the springtime, and I've been saying that this is probably one of the stronger blocks that I've seen for this time of year. I can't recall anything this strong for mid-May. Here's that upper low in Southern California that's bringing the rain. It shows up pretty well here on the visible satellite loop. You've got the showers that are being produced up the Rockies. You've got another area of another front and a storm in the Gulf of Alaska swinging a front toward the Pacific Northwest. And as far as the day-to-day weather is concerned, on the GFS, you see the showery range through the Rockies into tomorrow. They disappear and then reappear in the late afternoon and evening, probably even some thunderstorms there, and some raining into the southwestern Arizona, which has been unusually dry. They're going to get some rain over the next few days. They've had critical levels as far as fire danger is concerned there. And then by Thursday, we've got a low on the Texas-Oklahoma Panhandle. This is the seedling for the system that's going to come to the East Coast with rain and snow in the central Rockies. Another system, here's the next one coming into the Northwest. And I wouldn't be surprised. You're going to see some of this drop down southward along the California coast, bringing some more rain and even some snow in some of the higher elevations. This next thing, now we're at May 16th, would drop pretty far south to see rain all the way down and thunderstorms all the way down into San Diego. Very unusual. And then as we go forward, dries out to some degree toward the latter part of the period. So a very interesting pattern going forward. We're going to have much to talk about over the coming weeks to see if this threat for another soaking rain for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states plays out for next weekend. In the meantime, check out the website posts on meteorologistjoechaffee.com. Angry Ben has the New York City area covered on nycweathernow.com. You can download my app and subscribe to my forecasts, which are just $1 a month for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Connecticut, Hudson Valley, and Eastern Pennsylvania, and you get my forecasts and not some computer-generated forecasts, and they're updated at least twice a day, if not more. And thank you for being on my YouTube channel. If you're new, subscribe to my YouTube channel. That's absolutely free. Just hit the little red subscribe button on the YouTube channel page, and you'll get notifications when new videos come out, which is usually once a day. Have a great evening and a great week ahead.